Hey guys, today I got a video response from a professor of philosophy, which is actually the career path I'm heading towards, so I thought that was pretty cool. His name's SisyphusRedeemed, and you can see his video in the more info section. And as the title may suggest, this video is going to be addressing a new version of the Euthyphro Dilemma. Now, the original Euthyphro Dilemma asked whether objective morality is something external to God that he appeals to, or whether it's something God arbitrarily creates. And I argued that the answer is neither. The standard of morality could be God's nature, also called his essential properties. That means that the standard of morality would not be something external that he appeals to, nor would it be something he creates, but rather something he is. So let's look at his new version of the dilemma.
The same basic Euthyphro problem arises again, just in different terms. Does God have control over his nature, or does God's nature have control over him? Could God alter his nature if he chose to, or is his nature unalterable? If we choose the first option, then we're right back where we started. God decides his nature, and in so doing, he's deciding what is good and what is not, making morality subjective, based solely on the caprice of how God decides to choose his nature. And if we choose the second option, that God has no control over his nature, well, this poses certain problems for the claim that God's omnipotent, but let's set that aside. If we choose this option, then something other than God is actually dictating what God's nature is. Ultimately, then, it is this external force that is the true ground of morality, not God.
Let's take a look at that second premise. It sounds about right. The problem is that your objections don't make sense in the case of the Christian God. Keep in mind that you're critiquing what is sometimes poetically called the unmoved mover, a deity which is uncaused and eternal. So when you say things like this,
something other than God is actually dictating what God's nature is.
You're assuming that something caused an uncaused being. If you're going to use that objection against the Christian God, then your argument violates the law of non-contradiction. The Christian God would exist out of necessity and have a nature which is just a set of essential properties. That would make him a final and completely non-arbitrary foundation for objective morality. There would also be no possibility of an external thing existing before him that could dictate what his nature would be. Let's see what else you have to say.
One could, of course, try to split the horns of this dilemma as well by appealing to some why, but the futility of this move should be evident before I even say the words infinite regress.
In other words, if you posit a deity whose nature was caused by some external source, then you can just ask what caused the external source, and then what caused that external source. You can do that on into infinity. But positing an infinite number of explanations is actually no explanation at all. The new dilemma does away with deities which have causes, and we'll call those contingent deities. Now that actually explains why Euthyphro and Socrates didn't think of God's nature as a possible explanation for the standard of morality. They lived in a polytheistic culture with contingent deities.
At the end of the day, the Euthyphro problem is more than just a riddle or a test of one's faith. It's an intractable and insoluble problem that completely vitiates the central doctrine of nearly every monotheistic religion on the planet.
Far from showing that it can't be monotheism, you're actually making an argument for monotheism. You recognize there cannot be an infinite number of causes, so if objective morality exists, you need a final, non-arbitrary stopping point, something that has no external cause, an unmoved mover, so to speak. As always, test everything, hold on to the good.